Hello, my friends. Today I come to you not as a YouTuber, not as some weird guy holding a microphone, but as a friend, because I'd like to discuss with you the danger that AI presents to us as a society and as artists and as people who like to enjoy and consume art. You know what I'm saying? AI is not a bad thing. I'm not some doomer who's going to sit up here and be like, they're going to take everything. There's not going to be any fucking music left, bro. They're going to ruin everything. There'll be no real music. You won't know what's going to happen. I don't believe that's the case. In fact, that's basically the point of this video, is because I don't think that's the case. I don't believe that that's what's going to happen. I'm of a completely different opinion when it comes to that. I believe that AI does create some problem. Like if you go and search Kurt Cobain singing Crazy Train. I guarantee you can find an AI version where somebody made Kurt Cobain sing Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne. And there's nothing really wrong with that either. It's not really a big deal to me because that's sort of like a novelty, you know? Like we've always watched those stupid videos on YouTube where it's just like some weird shit, like a cat bobbing his head while a guy plays a drum. It's fun, you know what I'm saying? It's just like a good time. There's no fucking issue with that. But a lot of people I see start getting like the doomer perception behind it, where they think that AI is now going to replace real artists. They're not entirely wrong. It's already sort of started to happen. Like a lot of graphic designers and whatnot have been replaced by AI because it's just easier to type a couple words in and get a beautiful text prompt and a beautiful picture that comes out, and you paid $0 instead of having to pay some guy to produce a fucking $60 graphic clip art type thing for you that you're never going to use anyway. So I do see the issue there, and you should support your local artists. And I do think it's sort of, I don't really see it as a problem, to be honest with you. It just sort of is a thing, and like with all things, we have to adapt. I'm sure 50 years ago when people started like recording music, I guess it was more than 50 years, it's probably more like 70 years, but 50 years ago, for the sake of me not looking dumb, 50 years ago, music recording started, and before that, I bet you all the bands you just played, because you'd have live bands in the parlor, you just have bands, you'd go to eat dinner and there'd be a couple guys up there playing soft songs because you didn't have a radio. I'm sure a lot of them maybe got put out of work because they no longer had to perform. You didn't have to any longer go see live music in order to experience music. I'm sure a lot of the artists then probably saw it as an issue, like that's their livelihood. But as with all things, we overadapt, we improvise, and we overcome, my friend. The point I'm making is I don't really think that it's going to be quite as bad as people make it out to be, but we as humans tend to gravitate towards things that we can identify with. You know what I'm saying? Like any band that you like, I don't give a shit what it is. I'm sure it's good. I'm sure everybody else just doesn't understand them like you do, you know? You're the only one who gets it. That's why they're like one of the most popular bands of all time. But that's what makes art beautiful. That's what makes people identify with art, is the fact that people can listen to it and be like, that's me. They're talking about me in there. You don't get that feeling with AI, and you never will. When you do a text prompt and try to get them to make a person, and they make the hands, and it's like, you know, Yoda fingers, like with their hands all fucking stuck together and shit. It's not the same. And eventually it probably will be fine. In another year or two, it'll probably be to the point where it's completely beyond what we can recognize and be like, that's fake. But with music, it's getting there too. I know a lot of people who have tried to write songs using AI, where they'll, you know, put a prompt in and it writes a song for them, and then they try to record it, but it's always off. I'm sure that'll change as we get further into it. It'll eventually get to the point where you'll no longer really be able to tell that it's off. But I don't personally think that it's going to replace musicians or artists in general. I would like to draw back to the 80s to 90s. Hair metal and glam rock was at the peak. It was all these guys dressing up all fancy with their big poofy hair, looking hella foxy, puckering their lips and just playing rock and roll. And nobody saw change. Like a lot of the old metalheads were like, oh, things are going dark now. It's all pretty boys wearing fucking tights and leotards. And then overnight, a guy with a fucking flannel shirt and ripped jeans and a pair of like $2 Chuck Taylors from Goodwill came and put all of them out of business. And the beauty behind that was the reason why people identified with Nirvana, if you didn't know what I was talking about, was because that Nirvana was raw. It was fresh. It was something easy to identify with for anybody. You know, you didn't have to be some fancy rock star. You didn't have to be anything. You were just a guy with a guitar. You could identify with that. Anybody could, and feel like he understands you and he gets you, and you're the only one who gets them. It completely did away with hair metal and glam rock overnight. They completely put the nail in the coffin. And then a few short years later, grunge died too. And then it became more mainstream. And eventually, you got to look at it like a a roller coaster as things go. It goes up to the top where everybody all of a sudden has, foofy hair, dresses all fancy. They're all models. They're all beautiful. They all sing perfectly. They all got rich daddies. They all went to Juilliards. They're just really good people, They're really dope. They're just the coolest of the cool. And then something will come and happen overnight, like a Kurt Cobain, that will change that. And people want to go back to their grassroots, basically. That's happened more than once. And it wasn't just Nirvana. That's happened multiple times. Like even with punk. When punk came about, it was all hippies, playing their jam band, just, chilling and vibing and peace, love, dope, my friend. And people got sick of that. And they wanted something more raw and more real. And that's sort of what punk came about from, was more of a rebellion, a push of the status quo. And people identified for that. And of course it didn't last long. Neither did grunge. Nothing lasts long. Nothing does. There's nothing that lasts forever. Rap will eventually die too. And you've even noticed a shift, like with rap and whatnot. Like if you're looking at rap, 20, 30 years ago, it was all about, 50 Cent talking about being in the club with the bottle of bub, just the gangster shit, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of people like that because they could identify with that, even though maybe a lot of people probably didn't live that life, if we're being honest. But it gave you sort of excitement. It's like watching a cowboy movie, where you're like, hell yeah, I'm Clint Eastwood. He's so badass. You listen to rap and you're like, hell yeah, I'm a gangster. I'm so badass, bro. But eventually it gets stale. It gets tired. As kids grow up, they change. A lot of the same people who grew up with it will probably listen to it forever, but the kids coming up aren't going to like it. The next generation's not going to like what you like. They're going to think it's old boomer music, Get ready, bro. Get ready. Gen Z and millennials, you're about to be the next boomers. The point is, each generation comes, creates their own thing, and pushes it far beyond that. And there's always a time when things go back to their roots. It comes in waves. And my prediction with AI is going to be the fact that I think people will eventually, maybe not eventually, but pretty soon. I've already noticed like a resurgence. I was watching Billy Strings on Theo Von's podcast from last week. And he started to mention the same thing that I've been thinking too for a while, which is the fact that people want that raw reality, that simple, just easy to listen to, not complex, not overly produced, not fake, not Hollywood, not anything. It's just real music that you can identify with. And I'm sure that a lot of people will get pushed out by AI, whether they're, painters, graphic designers, musicians even will probably get pushed out by AI. But at the end of the day, the cream rises. So if you're good at what you do, then it shouldn't really matter, because I think you'll end up rising to the top either way, because you're going to be the cream, my friend, the cream of the crop. We even saw a few years back, like if you remember in the early 2010s, a lot of the pop music was becoming like dubsteppy, got very techno infused. Excuse the dogs. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but the dog's barking. It got very techno infused and became very like elaborate and really overproduced. And then what happened? Then in like the mid 2010s came Mumford & Sons and the Lumineers and that whole like indie sort of, vibey type thing, which was, I liked it. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I thought it was fun, But what it did was bring everybody back to their roots. But a lot of what like the Lumineers and Mumford & Sons did was bring people back to like the essence of the music and took away a lot of the overproduction and just made it simple and made it easy to vibe with. And I think it's coming again, honestly. I mean, if you look at the SoundCloud rap, a lot of the guys like Juice WRLD and Peep and Lil Xan, maybe not Lil Xan, but a lot of those guys from that Suicide Boys, Ghostmane a little bit, but they kind of simplified things. It wasn't overproduced. They did it themselves in their bedroom, and people like that. It inspired people to go create music. A lot of teenagers probably picked up a microphone and tried making trap because of the Suicide Boys and whatnot. And that happens in stages and waves, and that's happening now with music. So even as AI comes to replace people and make them obsolete, there will be a resurgence. And that's basically what the whole point of this video is I believe even as things get like more and more complex, the more we see changes, the more we see technological changes, and everything gets faster and better and more produced. There's still something special about listening to a 1950s recording that has no bass, no treble. It's just all one tone of somebody singing. It's special, and it's always going to have a place. And that's kind of what I think is going to happen with the AI stuff. There will be a resurgence of people who only want the pure stuff, just like what happened with vinyl. Vinyl went away for 20 years, and now all of a sudden real musicians, real music fans only listen to vinyl. And I think that same thing would happen with the AI art and everything else. People will eventually get sick of the fake and lame, just bullshit that's not real, that they can't identify with, and there will be resurgences of real musicians and real painters and real artists that you can identify with. And that's why I don't really think it's a big thing to worry about. Like, AI is not going to replace everybody. You know, it might replace a few people who just weren't that good to begin with, but in the end, the cream always rises. If you make good music, it's going to be heard. If you paint beautiful pictures, people are going to like it. No computer's going to take that away, no matter what. And there will always be people who prefer real, authentic, raw sounds to the oversimplified bullshit. But you white-collar workers, I'm sure it's going to come for you. If you're just spending your day writing reports, why would you not be replaced by something you can just type a sentence into and it'll give you the full report in, you know, the flick of a thumb? Is that what it's called? The flick of a thumb? Snap of a finger. That's what it was. But anyway, this was fairly incoherent, so I have a good feeling that probably nobody's going to see this. But that's my views, is that art will always end up okay. The cream will always rise, and people will always want organic, natural, raw music that they can just identify with, and paintings and anything. It's just AI in general, but you know, music's my thing, so I'm gonna have a little bias there. But go ahead and like and subscribe, and I'll be your best friend.